And welcome back to the Spicy Sports Show with Sam Cerrone, coming to you live from Hillsboro, Oregon. It's Super Bowl Sunday. Of course, there's a lot to talk about in the world of sports. I haven't done this in about 2 months. It's been a while, and we have some new equipment, mostly because of work. I'm not going to say that I went out and got all this stuff, but my work allowed me to get some equipment for work assignments. But hey, in the meantime, I can also use it for this podcast, and I'm excited because, again, I haven't done this in 2 months. I've been away. I've been to El Salvador. Been to a couple trips. Get to go to Vermont and Boston, Virginia this Wednesday. So first up will be Vermont for a couple days, then Boston, which I'm pretty excited about, and then rounding out that trip to Virginia, home for the weekend, then coming back to Virginia and North Carolina. So it's going to be a lot of podcasts on the road the next couple weeks, so I'm excited. Of course, we do have so much to talk about. Super Bowl Sunday, Carolina Panthers, Denver Broncos. A lot of storylines that you can come up with. I don't know, for me, as I've gotten older, I think the storylines have been a little, I wouldn't say dull, but I just don't think they're as exciting. But again, there are some storylines regardless. I mean, you have Cam Newton, NFL MVP voted last night, 48 of 50 votes, not surprising. The other two, Tom Brady and Carson Palmer, I'm not blaming the other two voters. They deserved their recognition, but Cam Newton was by far the best player in the NFL this season. If you went into the season after losing Kelvin Benjamin to a season-ending injury, their true number one, Ted Ginn Jr. emerging, who knew that was going to happen? Again, he has a lot of drop passes throughout the season, but he's overall been a pretty stellar receiver. And then Devin Funchess, the rookie out of Michigan, he's been pretty impressive as well. So, a lot to be said with the amount of offense that Cam Newton has had around him. The talent level has not been, I would say, probably a B to B plus, maybe. I wouldn't not say any of these guys are A plus receivers. And Greg Olsen, again, great player, but I don't think he's a top receiver in the league at all. So, for what Cam Newton did, what he was able to do with the talent that he has, very impressive. And on the other hand, the Denver Broncos, a team that, look, Peyton Manning got injured and just was completely inefficient throughout the middle of the season. Brock Osweiler comes in, leads them to a couple wins, pretty impressive wins. And then Peyton Manning comes back. You think this is going to be interesting how he runs through the playoffs. And I think at this point, his role has been pretty defined. His role for this game, as I expected to be, is going to be more of a game manager role, just like the New England game. I think that he's going to be really efficient with his passes. If you expect him to throw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, you're out of your mind. I think that would be probably the more surprising result than him than him being a game manager. I think that he knows where he's at, comfortable-wise in this offense. I think that it's just better for him to be a game manager, hand the ball off to his running backs, and then see what the defense can produce. Because if the defense can produce and get Cam Newton a little shaky, it should be an interesting game. I think if it's a low-scoring game, anything under 20 points, I think Denver's going to win it. Anything over that, I do believe Carolina has the edge here, because I think their offense has been ridiculous. I mean, you watch the NFC Championship game, Cam Newton just put on a show. And the Cardinals, let's be honest here, they were a Super Bowl contender, more so than the Carolina Panthers going into the playoffs, just because of the experience level. Again, Carson Palmer, a veteran quarterback, although he just won his first playoff game this season, they have a lot of veteran receivers around him. They have Larry Fitzgerald, who's been to a Super Bowl, and they have a pretty talented defense as well, just as good as Carolina's, so we thought. But Cam Newton kind of shredded that. And along with Carson Palmer's many interceptions, to that great Carolina defense, it's pretty impressive. Now, the first storyline that you'd probably look at would be the quarterback play. Cam Newton, Peyton Manning. A guy, Cam Newton, who's won the Heisman Trophy at Auburn, won national title at Auburn, the number one pick, expected to lead this franchise. Obviously, no one expected 15-1. I mean, going into the season at all. Even with a healthy Kelvin Benjamin, I maybe projected a division title, maybe a wild card, but 15 wins, it's really impressive. And to do it in the fashion that they have, putting up a lot of numbers offensively, and then that defense just playing the lights out, honestly. Now, Carolina does have a couple of players injured. Jared Allen and Thomas Davis, the linebacker, they're going to start. So that should be interesting how that plays. Obviously, I do believe that they're going to be rotating in and out quite frequently due to their injuries. But it's still pretty impressive that they get those two players back, especially Thomas Davis, who had a broken forearm in the NFC Championship game, had surgery, I believe, the day after. He is going to get the start. Again, on the other hand, look, I think that Cam Newton's going to be the face in the league in the next maybe 2 or 3 years. I think that he has the most to gain from this out of all between Peyton Manning and Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton has the most to gain just because if he wins the Super Bowl, it puts him in this elite class of players. Again, there's only a handful of quarterbacks in this league that have won a Super Bowl, have won an NFL MVP, and are considered one of the top players in the game. You have Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers is up there, and then Cam Newton. Drew Brees is also in the conversation, but lately he's kind of slipped, so you kind of don't put him in that upper echelon of quarterbacks anymore. That's probably where Cam Newton's slot, assuming he wins, gets that. And again, he's won an MVP now. So now the expectations going into next season, win or lose, are, especially with Kelvin Benjamin coming back, are pretty high. Now, on the flip side, you have Peyton Manning, who, again, great career, arguably the best regular season quarterback of all time. No question about that. Postseason, of course, you have your tiffs. Again, he's 1-2 in Super Bowls. He wins this one. He's tied with his brother Eli for Super Bowl titles at 2. I think it helps. It does help Manning. Don't get me wrong. Manning is a first ballot Hall of Famer, regardless, win or lose in this game. I feel that a lot of stuff reading up to this game, this has to be his last game. Again, there's an article that came out earlier that Manning was near tears during the Broncos meeting, and along with DeMarcus Ware. Again, he wasn't the only one in tears. So, for me, I feel that this is Manning's last ride. And again, we all know about the Belichick-Manning conversation that, hey, this may be my last rodeo. And if this is, what a great career. Again, a guy who, has done everything right his entire career. It's just that Father Time is undefeated. We always know that. We all know that. Father Time is undefeated, and it's clearly taken its toll on Peyton Manning. All the neck surgeries and the foot issues, it just catches up to everybody. Don't get me wrong. Even as stellar of a quarterback as Peyton Manning, who we're used to seeing 300-yard games, 3 touchdowns at least. And if not, we're thinking, what's wrong with him? But again, if he wins the Super Bowl, yes, I think it'll help his legacy a little bit more. But it's pretty cemented in there as arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks, probably top 10 all time. The second storyline we have to go to would be defenses. Obviously, these two defenses are fantastic. Denver is by far the best defense in the league, I would say. I think that because of what they had to go through the regular season with the adversity of losing Manning, getting Brock Osweiler in, and then having to help out a little bit. Again, this defense is fantastic. They have a lot of talent. DeMarcus Ware, you have Von Miller, their cornerbacks. Chris Harris is fantastic on the outside. This team is good. This defense is really good. And the way Denver is going to win this, like I said, it's going to be Peyton Manning being a game manager along with this defense stepping up to what they need to be. They need to make Cam Newton uncomfortable. Again, he's a mobile quarterback, so how do you make a mobile quarterback uncomfortable? I think the game plan for Denver is that they're going to have to mark up everybody. They're going to have to mark up Funchess. They're going to have to mark up Olsen. They're going to have to mark up Ted Ginn Jr. And then once that's covered, they're going to have a man on Cam Newton. Again, a one-man on one, that's going to be difficult to do. But with the athletic linebacking core that Denver has, this is probably more doable than most teams, I would say. Again, when you have a linebacker like Von Miller, who's fantastic, when you have an athletic defensive end like DeMarcus Ware who can get the pressure, Against New England, they only rushed 3 players. They dropped the rest into the secondary, making Tom Brady a little bit frustrated. And if they can get the pressure with 3, and then have them, again, the difference between Tom Brady and Cam Newton is that Cam Newton can run. But if they have someone on him and only gaining a couple yards, yes, that's going to get this Panthers team a little bit frustrated, which can cause Cam Newton to make mistakes into this pretty talented defense that, again, is more than capable of getting turnovers. Now, on the flip side, I heard this argument, and again, to make the argument for Carolina having the best defense, they don't necessarily have to play 4 quarters. Denver has to play 4 quarters of ridiculous defense to win this game. Carolina, not so much, just because they have a quarterback that can sling it. They have a quarterback in Cam Newton that can throw all over the field. He can throw to his tight end. He can throw to his receivers. And he has a pretty good running back in Jonathan Stewart, who hasn't taken as much of a beating as most running backs do, because Cam Newton has that ability to run the football. And he can take hits at 6'5", 250. He'll be fine. I think that, of course, it'll be a little sore, but he can withstand those hits from NFL players. No question about that. Now, the final storyline you have to go to would be who is going to be the X player? Who's going to be the X factor in this game? For Denver, you're probably going to have to look at the running backs. I mean, the running backs have to play out of their minds. They're going to, for them to win this game, they're going to have to go for 100 yards combined. Whether whoever's in the backfield, I mean, whether it be Anderson or Hillman, whoever's in the backfield has to be able to get those yards on first and second down to make Manning's life a little bit easier. For Carolina, it's very simple. For me, it's Ted Ginn Jr. This guy is, I think it is 9th, 10th year out of Ohio State, one of the most explosive players in the league. He needs to catch the football. He's had a couple drops in situations. Again, he's made up for them, but he's had drops in situations where you'd think that it may cost his team. This cannot happen for Carolina. If Carolina expects to win this game, Ted Ginn Jr. has to have a great game. Don't get me wrong. Greg Olson's going to get his yards. Funchess will probably have a couple catches where he'll be pretty open, but they're going to be worried about Ted Ginn Jr. because of his explosiveness, his speed on the outside. Again, I believe Harris Jr. is probably going to cover him. So this should be pretty interesting to see how it goes for this game. I mean, it's going to be a good game, I think, overall. That being said, all these storylines, again, for me as I get older, I don't look into it too much. Now, of course, my prediction, that's the biggest one, of course. My prediction for this game, I'm going with Carolina. Would it be? Am I rooting for Peyton Manning? Absolutely. I think that, it's not that I'm saying that I'm rooting against Cam Newton. These are 2 great quarterbacks. I think that Cam Newton is going to be the face of the NFL. Whether you like it or not, he is. And I think he's a great face for it because how far he's come to build his image. People forget that he got kicked off Florida for stealing a laptop. Went to junior college, and then got his stuff together at Auburn. And that's when the momentum gets started. And, of course, he had the scandal at Auburn, too. But ever since he got to the NFL, ever since he got to the league, we haven't heard about him getting into any incidents. And I think that, and being the role model face of the franchise, people have a lot of criticism for Cam Newton for doing the dab and, handing footballs to kids. Look, as long